The dim glow of bioluminescent veins pulsed across the walls of the Queen's sanctum aboard the dying mothership, casting long shadows that danced like living specters over the lone human figure chained before her throne. Elara, the alien queen whose empire had conquered 1,000 stars, stood frozen, her obsidian exoskeleton glistening with iridescent fury, her multifaceted eyes locked on the man whose face she had cherished in secret for years. The air hummed with the low thrum of failing life support systems, a constant reminder that her world was crumbling, just as her hearts were now fracturing in real time. You. Her voice, once a symphony of clicking harmonics that commanded entire fleets to obliterate worlds, cracked into a fractured silence. The revelation clawed through her like venom from her own stinger. The rescuer who had pulled her from the smoldering wreckage of her crashed scout ship on that forsaken Earth colony a decade ago, the shadowed savior who had shielded her with his fragile body from a hail of human gunfire, whispering promises of alliance in a voice that soothed her agony, was no fellow exile from the stars. He was human. Captain Marcus Hale. The enemy. The species she had sworn to eradicate. Tears of liquid mercury welled in her secondary eyes, trailing shimmering paths down her angular cheeks. The sanctum's atmosphere grew thick, charged with the metallic tang of her rising pheromones, chemical signals of rage, grief, and something far more dangerous, unresolved longing. All this time, you lied. Her massive claws tightened around the hilt of her plasma blade, the weapon igniting with a lethal blue fire that illuminated the deep scars across her thorax, scars from that very crash he had saved her from. The chains binding Marcus rattled as he shifted, blood trickling from a fresh gash on his forehead where her drones had struck him during capture. His heart pounded so loudly she could sense its frantic rhythm through the vibrations in the floor, a human drumbeat echoing in her heightened senses. "I saved you because I saw you, Elara," Marcus rasped, his voice raw with the same desperate fire that had once bound them in hidden moments. Sweat beaded on his brow, mixing with the blood, and his dark eyes, those eyes she had memorized in stolen glances, held hers without flinching. Not species. Not war. You. The sanctum trembled as her powerful tail lashed out, cracking the obsidian floor with a sharp report that sent echoes bouncing through the vast chamber. Crystalline shards scattered like broken stars. Every instinct, honed by centuries of evolutionary supremacy, screamed at her to end him. To drive the blade through his fragile neck and erase the betrayal that had made her empire's greatest weakness a pathetic man from the dirt world called Earth. Her primary hearts thundered in her chest, twin cores that had once beaten in sync with his during those forbidden nights of connection beneath the colony's shattered moons. But now they shattered in the suffocating quiet. She could still taste the memory on her sensory mandibles, the acrid smoke of her downed ship, the searing pain of her shattered exoskeleton plates, the cold rain of that primitive planet soaking into her wounds. She had been dying, her royal link to the hive severed, alone for the first time in her long existence. Then he appeared, a lone human soldier, defying his own kind's orders to hunt her. He dragged her into a hidden cave, his hands gentle despite the terror in his eyes. "Stay with me," he had whispered, pressing fabric to her leaking fluids. "I won't let them take you." "Why?" she had asked him then, through pain-induced telepathic bursts. His answer had been simple, human in its stupidity. "Because you're alive. And that matters." Now that lie burned hotter than any plasma fire. Elara stepped closer, her towering form casting him in complete shadow. At nearly 9 feet tall, she dwarfed him, her claws capable of rending steel. Yet he looked up at her with that same stubborn defiance mixed with tenderness that had haunted her dreams for years. The blade hovered inches from his throat, its heat singing the fine hairs on his skin. One twitch of her wrist and his life would spill across the floor, a red offering to her betrayed hive. "Tell me why," she hissed, her voice dropping to a subsonic rumble that vibrated through his bones. "Why pretend to be one of the lost ones? Why risk your pathetic life for an enemy queen?" Marcus swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing against the blade's edge. A thin line of blood welled where it kissed his flesh. Because the first time I saw you, broken and fighting to survive, I realized we weren't so different. Your people, my people, we're both just trying to protect what we love. I saw the way you shielded your eggs even as your ship burned. That wasn't a monster. That was a mother. A leader. His voice cracked with emotion, memories flooding his words. Those nights we talked, when you told me about the stars you ruled, the loneliness of command, I fell for the soul behind the armor. I didn't care what you were. I still don't. Lies. Or truth. The doubt clawed at her. Elara's secondary arms unfolded from her sides, delicate manipulators that had once traced the lines of his face in secret. She reached out now, the tips brushing his jaw with deceptive gentleness. His skin was warm, alive, pulsing with vulnerability. She remembered the way he had kissed her mandibles under the cover of darkness, unafraid of her fangs. The way his laughter had filled the void in her existence, a sound so alien yet so perfectly resonant. The hive had begun to question her absences then. Whispers of weakness spread through the collective mind. But she had silenced them with victories, worlds burned in his name, unknowingly. Now the mothership itself was dying around them. Alarms blared distantly, red emergency lights strobing across the sanctum's walls. Human resistance fleets were closing in, drawn by the distress signal she had refused to answer until now. Her empire teetered because she had hesitated, lost in thoughts of him. You humans are deceivers, she growled, pressing the blade closer. His breath hitched. Your kind hunted me like an animal. They would have vivisected me for your primitive science. Yet you protected me. Fed me scraps from your rations. Risked execution by your commanders. Her eyes narrowed, pupils contracting to slits. Was it all a ploy? To infiltrate? To learn our weaknesses? Marcus shook his head, chains clanking. No. God, no. When I reported back, I said the Queen was dead. I covered for you. I sabotaged my own team's trackers so they couldn't follow. Every night after that, when you'd send your signals to meet, I came because I couldn't stay away. You changed me, Elara. Made me see the stars differently. Not as territory to conquer, but as a place where someone like you could exist. Emotion surged through her like a solar flare. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to pull him close, wrap her tail around his waist as she had done before, feel the press of his body against her armored plates. But the betrayal cut deeper than any wound. The man she loved, the only being who had ever made an immortal queen feel mortal, was the very species that had nearly wiped out her scouting party. Her children, the royal larvae, had perished in that crash because of humans. Because of what he represented. The sanctum shuddered violently as an explosion rocked the outer hull. Debris rained from the ceiling, sparking against her exoskeleton. Time was running out. The hive mind screamed at her for direction, thousands of drones awaiting her command to fight or flee. But she remained locked here, with him. Prove it, she demanded, her voice a whirlwind of pain. Prove your love isn't another human weapon. With a swift motion, she sliced through one of his chains, freeing his right arm. The plasma blade deactivated momentarily as she pressed it into his palm instead. Kill me if this was all deception. End the queen who was foolish enough to trust you. The hive will avenge me, but at least I will know the truth before I die. Marcus stared at the weapon, his fingers wrapping around the hilt. It was heavy, alien technology humming with lethal potential. He could end it all, strike her down and perhaps save humanity from her wrath. His eyes filled with tears, mirroring her own mercury drops.